Do you want to learn the most effective strategies to beat every type of opponent in singles play? Hey, this is Mehrban Ranchoud, host of Tennis Summit 2022, the world's biggest online tennis conference in the world. And today I've got a free preview session for you on how to beat every type of singles opponent with Coach Marc Sophoulis. And I'm really excited to bring this free preview to you of this session. And if you'd like to watch the full video of this session, plus over 40 others with amazing coaches such as Peter Freeman, Paul Annacone, Rick Macy, Gigi Fernandez, Ryan Reedy, Will Hamilton, and many others, then go to the link below this video or go to tennisfilesummit.com to pick up your free ticket to watch all the sessions. All right, now let's get into the video. Hey everybody, welcome to this session. I'm really honored and very pleased to have on Marc Sophoulis on this presentation, and really excited to have you back, Marc. It's been a little bit of a while, I guess, since I've spoken with you, and it's great to see you again. So today we're going to talk about how to break down your opponents, or rather, Marc is going to reveal his formula for that, which is going to be huge for your game. And just a quick intro, if you have not already heard of Marc, he does a lot of great things. He's the head coach at Melbourne International Tennis School in Melbourne, Australia, of course, and he's coached many big-time pros, including Anastasia Rodionova, Arina Rodionova, Dane Perbogia, and Victor Hanescu. And Marc has spoken at numerous conferences around the world, and he's been a commentator as well for professional tennis matches, which has been really cool to see and hear him do that. And he also coaches football as well. He's got a match coming up pretty soon, actually. So, as we were talking about. So thanks for making the time, Marc. Really appreciate it.
Anytime, man. It's always a pleasure to help you out in this conference. I think it's a great thing for so many players and coaches around the world to learn from. And hopefully I can give something that your learners can walk away with and utilize the next time they step on court.
Definitely, Marc. Definitely. Really excited to listen intently on this one. So with that, I guess I'll let you take it away.
No worries. Thanks for that. And yeah, I just wanted to go through a little bit of the strategy around how we would sort of break down opponents in matches. And as a coach, you sit there and you're a little bit helpless at times when you're watching a match. But I think it's really important to set your players up to be successful. And if you're a player and you're looking to really take the next step, it's important to understand not only what you can do really well, but then how do I break down opponents? And that's going to be what today's all about. So these are some of the considerations that I have as a coach leading into any kind of match. And what I wanted to really go through is, by the end of this presentation, give you an understanding of sort of the areas that you need to consider to utilize against your opponents. And no matter what style of game they play, is to understand how to do that. Now, when you do come up with strategy also, that one of the key things that we always run with is you have a strategy before you play, but go out and practice that strategy prior to the match. I think it's important that not only you have this idea in your mindset about how you want to play the match, but then go out and practice a few of those patterns of play that you might need to implement come the match. So that's hopefully what we'll get out of this presentation, and we'll go from there. So basically, there's 4 areas that I wanted to cover off today, and to give you all a little bit of an understanding of how I look at the game. So when I'm breaking down an opponent and looking at strategy, I look at these 4 areas. It's the technical, tactical, physical, and mental side of the game. So obviously, there's areas of everybody's game, and including our own, that we probably are really good at. And there's areas of our game that we're probably, I guess, not so good at, and we probably struggle in certain times. So it's important to understand what you're good at, which I call the 80% of our match. So if you heard a presentation that I did with at this tennis summit a few years back, it was all about the 80-20 rule. And that 80-20 rule was based upon 80% of what I can control and 20% about how do I expose my opponent. So we'll look at the 4 areas of the game when we break it down. So pillar 1 is all about the technical side of the game. So we're going to look at how we do that from a technical perspective. So when we think technique, there are so many players that have different techniques. And when I coach, one of the biggest things about coaching is you want to limit the amount of technical limitations or weaknesses that we have in a player. But what we want to do is be able to expose the opponent's technical areas of the game. And when I look at strategizing against opponents, we look at what kind of grips our opponent holds. And that's probably the first step to to anything technical. So what grip do they hold? Are they using that grip to either generate or use the speed of the ball coming in? So what are they really good at? What are they not so good at? We look at the swing lines of the opponents. We look at sort of the size of the swings. We look at whether they start in or they start out and have a little bit of a straight arm at the starting point, and how do we then expose that? We look at the leverage shapes at impact, so whether or not they've probably got a straight arm at impact or they've got a slightly bent arm, and we'll go through that shortly. Which stance they prefer. So generally your grips will determine the stance that you prefer. So if you're more Western or rounded grips, you're going to be more of an open stance. The more Eastern grip you are, so the flatter grip that you have, the more closed stance you're going to have. So that's another important factor we look at. And what the strengths and limitations are. So does a player like to go down the line more, across court more? And we have a look at those sort of areas of the game. So when we think technically, these are some of the main components of technique that we want to break down in our opponent. And I've got a few photos here that might give us a little bit of an indication of what we're talking about. So when we look at leverage shapes, so you look at Federer in the top left corner. It's the top left corner of my screen, so hopefully it's in the same in yours. But top left corner, Roger Federer's got that straight arm at impact, showing more of that Eastern-based grip, so a little bit of a flatter-based grip. And you've got Dominic Thiem below that, who's got a slightly more rounded grip between that semi and that Western side. And you see the leverage shape, so the elbow is bending at impact. So basically with those two kind of stroke productions, what you'll understand is that Federer wants to hit the ball a little bit flatter and Dominic Thiem wants to hit the ball a little bit more spin. So what we can understand about those game styles is that what they want to do, we need to try and take away from them. So as an example of that, if I was playing a Dominic Thiem and just setting up to play a Dominic Thiem, you would take away his angles and his spaces. So players that have rounded grips want to create more width in the game. Whereas players that are a bit flatter want to play more length of the game, so they want to play through the baseline more. So what we want to do is we want to try and either limit the ability for them to do that or just take it away from them and not allow them to play to their strengths. Then you have the middle column where you have Simona Halep in the top and you have Maria Sharapova down the bottom. Two different photos. Simona Halep's a bit more rounded in her grips and she'll generally rotate a fraction more around her hips. Whereas you see the linear-based movement of Sharapova, where she's a bit Eastern on the grip. She wants to step down the court more, and she wants to play through the court a little bit more, similar to Roger Federer, but this is in the take-back position of the racket. And then on the far right, we've got our recently retired superstar, Ash Barty, who a bit of a shame that she's now gone for Australian tennis and world tennis. But as you can see, she's got that straight arm at impact with the left arm, which shows that she has a bit more of an Eastern-based double-handed backhand, whereas Serena Williams has got more of a semi-Western-based double-handed backhand. So the ability for Serena to create more angles and shapes is probably easier. So you want to limit the ability for her to do that, whereas Ash Barty likes the ball down through the middle of the court, and she likes to play a little bit flatter through the line of the ball. So they're very, very different, and every player needs to be treated individually in terms of trying to break them down. So hopefully that gives you an understanding of what players like to do in the way that they want to swing the racket and the way they hold the racket. And we need to learn how to take that away. And what we'll do is we'll go down into that in the tactical side of the game. So as we continue on here, what I've given you all is a little bit of a snapshot of, it's probably a little bit of a cheat sheet, actually. You can take it on court with you when you're playing your matches and understand what the leverage shape looks like. So the more bent elbow at impact, the more Western the grip. The straighter arm at impact shows you the more Eastern the grip. And then cheat sheets to be able to break down the opponents. So for an example, when we play someone who has a Western grip, what we want to do is not give them much time and space. The players that have Western grip need a lot more time to get the swing right around and get through to impact. And what we want to do is we want to take that away. The other thing that they really like to do is they like the ball right in their strike zone or a little bit higher. We want to make sure we keep that ball fractionally lower. So, these are little things that we can learn to do against these opponents. But hopefully this little template, which you can take onto the court when you play, gives you an idea of how we might be able to break down someone's grip or someone's technical side of the game. And then we look at it from three situations. So I always try and break it down into different ways. So the game is broken up into three areas. On the left-hand column, you'll see when you're serving, when you're returning, and when the ball is in play. So they're the three different scenarios that we'll play in a match. And what I've done here is broken it down into those three areas on how to break down someone's grip if you want to make sure you get the maximum potential that you have on your serve, return, and ball in play. So it's a template. It's obviously not a one size fits all. We always understand that different players will swing differently dependent on their grip, but it's really important to know that this will probably work 80 to 90% of the time. And you'll understand that each grip has their limitation, but they also have their strengths. So what I've been able to do in these little diagrams is give you the strengths and the weaknesses of it so that you can understand what they do really well and then take away what they don't do so well.
I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, then go to tennisfilesummit.com to pick up your free ticket to watch this session in full, plus over 40 world-class coaches presenting on technique, strategy, fitness, and the mental game at tennisfilesummit.com. See you at the summit.